I grow weary of these encounters. Disruptor! Hypergram! Magnetic blast! Away with you! Disruptor! Hypergram! Disruptor! Disruptor! Hypergram! Disruptor! Disruptor! Magnetic blast! Magnetic blast! Shockwave! Magnetic blast! Disruptor! Hypergram! No! Hypergram! 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 Force field! Force field! Hypergram! Force field! Force field! Disruptor! Hypergram! Disruptor! Hypergram! Shockwave! Hypergram! Force field! Hypergram! Disruptor! KO! Not all. Disruptor! Hypergram! Disruptor! Hypergram! Disruptor! Hyper... Disruptor! Hypergram! Hypergram! Disruptor! Shockwave! Disruptor! Hypergram! Magnetic blast! Magnetic blast! Hypergram! Agent strike! Force field! Disruptor! Hypergram! Hypergram! Disruptor! Force field! Hypergram! Hypergram! Force field! No! Force field! Hypergram! Disruptor! Disruptor! Hypergram! Hypergram! Force field! Disruptor! Attraction! No!
Don't mess with the cages.
Hypergram! Disruptor! Hypergram!
Agent strike!
Disrupt! Shockwave! Hypergram! Disruptor! Disruptor!
Agent strike!
Magnetic Hypergram! Disruptor! Hypergram! Disruptor! Disruptor! Hypergram! Disruptor! Hypergram! Disruptor! Hypergram! Force field! Hypergram! Force field! Hypergram! Hypergram! Disruptor!
Agent strike! Agent strike!
Force field! Hypergram!
Royal!
No!